feeling when you really need someone's help, but the words just get stuck in your throat?
Absolutely. It's like your brain is screaming, "Just ask already," but your mouth completely betrays you. I've been there more times than I'd like to admit, and honestly, it never stops being slightly uncomfortable, no matter how many times you do it.
That's exactly what we're diving into today, the surprisingly tricky art of asking for a favor. And I have to say, Jake, I still get a little knot in my stomach every time I have to do it, even with close friends. There's something about it that just feels inherently awkward.
Honestly, same here. And I think it's because asking for a favor feels like you're imposing on someone, even when you're not. You're basically saying, "I can't do this alone," and that makes you feel vulnerable. Our whole culture celebrates independence, so admitting you need a hand can feel almost like a personal failure.
Vulnerable, that's the perfect word for it. You're exposing a need, right? And nobody wants to come across as needy or worse, entitled. There's this fine line between being someone who occasionally needs help and being someone who's constantly taking without giving back.
Right. And there's this unspoken social contract hovering over every favor. We're constantly calculating in our heads, how big is this ask, how close are we, and how much do I owe them afterwards? It's exhausting. I sometimes lie awake at night thinking about a favor I asked 3 years ago, wondering if I've properly repaid it.
Oh, I do that too. The late-night replay of every social interaction. But here's the thing. We all need favors. Nobody gets through life completely self-sufficient. So why does it feel so awkward? Why haven't we normalized it more?
I think part of it is deeply cultural. In some cultures, asking for help is totally normal, almost expected. There's a collectivist mindset where people operate as a unit. In others, particularly in many Western cultures, there's this heavy emphasis on self-reliance. You're supposed to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, as they say, and asking for help is seen as a last resort.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's such an interesting phrase, meaning to improve your situation entirely by your own efforts without any outside assistance. But honestly, I've never met anyone who actually succeeded without a little help along the way. The phrase itself is kind of impossible if you think about it. You can't physically pull yourself up by your own boots.
That's what makes it such a strange metaphor. And neither have I met anyone truly self-made. Behind every so-called self-made person, there's usually a long string of favors nobody talks about. A friend who lent them money when they were broke, a colleague who put in a good word, a neighbor who watched their kids, a mentor who took them under their wing.
Exactly. So maybe the first step to getting comfortable with favors is admitting that they're completely normal and universal. We're not failing by asking, we're just being human. Every successful person you admire got where they are because someone, somewhere did them a kindness.
Beautifully put. And I'd add that most people actually genuinely like helping. It gives them a sense of purpose, a little boost of self-esteem. You're not just taking, you're giving them an opportunity to feel good about themselves. Studies in psychology have shown that helping others activates the reward centers in our brain. It literally feels good to be generous.
That's such an important reframe. I never really thought of it that way before. You're offering someone the chance to be generous and feel that warm glow. But still, there's definitely a right way and a wrong way to go about it, isn't there? We've all experienced someone who asks in a way that just rubs us the wrong way.
Oh, for sure. There's an art to it, and not everyone has mastered that art. I once had a coworker who would just declare, "I need you to cover my shift," without even a please or a hint of flexibility. It felt less like a favor and more like a command. The audacity was almost impressive.
Ouch, that would rub me the wrong way immediately. There's a huge difference between asking and telling, and tone is absolutely everything in these situations. That person basically burned their social capital without even realizing they were doing it.
Social capital, nice term, and so relevant here. It's like a bank account, isn't it? Every positive interaction, every kind gesture, every time you show up for someone is a deposit. And every demanding favor, every inconsiderate ask is a withdrawal. If you overdraw consistently, people start avoiding your calls. They screen you out.
Perfect analogy. And just like a real bank account, you can't just waltz in and make a big withdrawal from an empty account. You need to have built up some reserves first. The people who ask for massive favors from acquaintances they barely know, they're basically writing a check that their social account can't cash.
Waltz in. I love that phrase. It means to enter casually and confidently, often when you're not really entitled to do so. And yeah, the people who waltz in and demand things without any prior relationship are the worst. They don't read the room at all. They have no situational awareness.
Reading the room is absolutely crucial. Before I ask for anything, I try to gauge the other person's mood and circumstances. Are they stressed, rushed, overwhelmed? If they're barely keeping their head above water with their own problems, it's probably not the right moment to pile on.
Exactly. Timing can make or break a request. I learned that lesson the hard way when I asked my boss for a day off right after she just finished dealing with a major client crisis that nearly lost the company a huge account. The look she gave me could have melted solid steel. I genuinely wanted to disappear into the floor.
Oh no, I can picture that scenario perfectly, and I'm cringing on your behalf. What did she actually say?
She didn't say anything at first. She just stared at me for what felt like an absolute eternity, and then said very slowly and deliberately, "We'll talk about this tomorrow, Jake." The way she said my name made it crystal clear that I'd messed up badly. I'd completely misread the situation and picked the worst possible moment.
That's a classic case of bad timing, but it also brings up another really important point. How do you actually phrase the request? Because the words themselves matter enormously, especially in English where we have so many layers and levels of politeness to navigate.
Massively important. We have this whole ladder of indirectness in English. You can go from "Can you help me?" which is already fairly polite, to "I was wondering if you might possibly be able to," which is almost comically indirect. English speakers often dance around requests rather than stating them directly.
Right, and learners of English often struggle with this nuance. They might use a direct form that sounds unintentionally rude, simply because nobody taught them the softer alternatives. Like saying, "Give me your pen," instead of, "Could I possibly borrow your pen for a moment?"
Huge difference between those two. Give me your pen is an order, a command. Could I borrow your pen is a request that acknowledges the other person's ownership. Adding that could and framing it as a question completely changes the entire vibe of the interaction. It acknowledges the other person's autonomy.
Autonomy, their freedom to choose, their right to say no, that's really the key element. A good favor request always leaves room for the person to decline without feeling terrible about it. You're giving them an exit ramp, a way to refuse gracefully.
An exit ramp, I really like that metaphor. And honestly, when you give someone an easy way out, they're often actually more willing to say yes. It's completely counterintuitive, but pressure creates psychological resistance. Freedom creates generosity. When people don't feel trapped, they're more open to helping.
So true. Phrases like, "No worries if not," or "Don't feel obligated at all," or "Only if it's convenient," actually increase your chances of getting a yes, because you're showing genuine respect for their boundaries and their time. It's psychological jujitsu, using the energy of the situation to your advantage.
Jiu-jitsu indeed. You're lowering their natural defenses. I use no pressure at all, and whenever you get around to it, constantly in my daily life. It signals clearly that our relationship isn't riding on their answer. The friendship remains intact regardless of whether they can help this time or not.
That's so fundamentally important. The subtext of any favor request should always be, our relationship is more valuable than this one specific ask. If people sense that you're only being nice to get something from them, that you're buttering them up with an agenda, you're finished.
Absolutely. And you can spot those transactional people from a mile away. They suddenly get super chatty out of nowhere, compliment you excessively and awkwardly, and then hit you with the big ask after about 5 minutes of fake small talk. It's so transparent, it's almost embarrassing.
Transparent, meaning you can see right through it. The true motives are completely obvious. Yeah, nobody likes feeling manipulated or used. So what do you do instead? How do you build that genuine connection before you need something, so it doesn't feel transactional when you eventually have to ask?
You invest in the relationship consistently and authentically, not just when you're desperate. A quick message checking in on how they're doing.
remembering their birthday or their kid's name, offering to help when you see they're swamped with work. Little deposits into that social bank account, made regularly over time without any immediate expectation of return.
So it's fundamentally about being a good friend or colleague all the time, not just switching it on when it's convenient for you. That sounds obvious when we say it out loud, but I think we all forget it occasionally. Life gets busy and chaotic.
It really does get chaotic, and I'm genuinely guilty of it too. You get tunnel vision on your own problems and suddenly realize you haven't asked your friend about their life in 3 weeks. Then you feel incredibly awkward bringing up your own need because the relationship feels neglected.
The awkwardness in that situation is so real and so uncomfortable, and that's when you need what I call a soft opener. Something like, I know I haven't been in touch much lately, and I feel genuinely bad about that, but I'm in a bit of a bind, and I could really use your perspective.
That's a great approach because it demonstrates self-awareness and humility. Acknowledging the lapse in communication up front shows that you're not oblivious. It's like clearing the air before making your request. And in a bind, meaning in a difficult or tricky situation, is such a useful, versatile phrase for these moments.
In a bind is perfect because it doesn't sound overly dramatic or catastrophic. You're not claiming it's a life or death emergency. You're just temporarily stuck. It lowers the emotional stakes and makes the other person feel less pressured to solve your entire life's problems.
Exactly. And speaking of lowering stakes, I think being specific is another deeply underrated skill in the art of asking. Vague requests absolutely freak people out. Can you help me move? Is terrifying because it's completely open-ended. Can you help me move my one couch for about 20 minutes on Saturday morning? Is manageable and clear.
Oh, that's brilliant advice. Specificity makes the favor feel contained and bounded. The person knows exactly what they're signing up for, the time commitment, the physical effort required. There's no fear of the favor expanding into some kind of all-day nightmare scenario.
Right. In project management, we call that scope creep. The task starts small and manageable, then slowly balloons into something much bigger than anyone anticipated. If you can prevent scope creep in your request by being precise up front, you're golden. People appreciate knowing the boundaries.
Scope creep. I'm absolutely stealing that term for everyday use. So, to summarize what we've covered so far, build a genuine foundation, pick the right moment, use soft and indirect language, always offer an exit ramp, and be specific about what you're asking. Did I miss anything crucial?
You nailed the main points beautifully, but I'd add one more that often gets overlooked. Express genuine, specific gratitude afterwards. And I don't mean a quick throwaway thanks muttered over your shoulder. I mean something detailed that shows you truly noticed and appreciated their specific effort.
Totally agree. A heartfelt, specific thank you can transform a simple transaction into a genuine bonding moment. Instead of just, thanks for the ride, you might say, I really appreciate you going so far out of your way, especially with rush hour traffic being absolutely terrible. It honestly made my entire day so much easier and less stressful.
Yes. That kind of thank you shows you truly saw the cost to them. You recognize that they didn't just snap their fingers and magically solve your problem. They sacrificed real time and comfort and energy. Acknowledging that sacrifice specifically is what makes people feel genuinely valued and seen.
It's the difference between being merely polite and being genuinely grateful. Politeness is a social script we all learn. Gratitude is personal and heartfelt. And people can feel the difference between those two things in their bones. They know when you're just going through the motions.
They absolutely can sense it. I once helped a neighbor jumpstart his car on a freezing cold morning, something that took maybe 5 or 10 minutes. He showed up the very next day with a 6-pack of my absolute favorite craft beer. I hadn't even told him what I liked. He'd gone out of his way to ask my wife what I'd enjoy.
Wow, that's genuinely next-level gratitude. He did his homework and put real thought into it. That story will stick with you forever, won't it? You'll be telling that at dinner parties for years.
It really will stick with me. And now I'd do absolutely anything for that guy without hesitation. That small but thoughtful gesture told me he doesn't take people or their kindness for granted. It was a genuine masterclass in how to receive a favor gracefully and meaningfully.
Receiving gracefully, that's truly an art in itself, and we don't talk about it enough. Some people get so awkward and uncomfortable that they try to downplay the favor or refuse help repeatedly, even when they desperately need it. That can actually feel insulting to the person offering.
I've been on that receiving side too, and it's frustrating. You offer to help with genuine goodwill, and the person goes, No, I couldn't possibly. I don't want to be a burden. It's like they're rejecting your gift of kindness. Sometimes the most gracious thing you can do is just say a warm thank you and accept it openly.
Exactly. Let people be generous and enjoy that feeling. Don't rob them of that good feeling by being overly modest or self-deprecating. It's a delicate balancing act, though. You want to accept warmly without seeming entitled or like you expected it all along.
The balance is in acknowledging their effort and sacrifice without acting like you somehow deserved it. A simple, "You really saved me, I'm so genuinely grateful," works wonders. It's humble and appreciative at the same time, striking that perfect middle ground.
Now let's talk about what happens when someone says no, because that's the big, deep fear, isn't it? The real reason we get those knots in our stomachs. We're absolutely terrified of rejection and what it might mean.
It's the absolute core of the fear of asking. And learning to handle a no gracefully is maybe even more important than learning to ask well. Because if you react badly to a refusal, you can permanently damage or even destroy the relationship in that single moment.
Torch the relationship, meaning destroy it completely, burn it down. What's the right, graceful response when someone declines your request?
First and most importantly, don't push back. Don't say, "Oh, come on, please," or "Are you sure?" That's disrespecting their boundary and putting them in an even more uncomfortable position. Instead, something like, "Totally understand. Thanks so much for considering it anyway." Keep it light, keep it kind, keep it moving.
It definitely stings in the moment, but you swallow that sting and manage your own emotions, because the long-term relationship is infinitely more valuable than this one specific favor. And you never know, they might genuinely want to help next time, and your graceful, pressure-free reaction will make them far more likely to offer.
Bingo. You're playing the long game, not the short game. I had a close friend say no to a pretty significant favor once, and I just said, "No problem at all. I completely understand." About a month later, he offered to help me with something else entirely without me even bringing it up. He remembered my calm reaction, and it made him want to step up.
That's a beautiful, real-world example. Your calm, mature response left the door wide open for future generosity. If you'd gotten huffy or cold or passive-aggressive, that door would have slammed shut permanently, and the friendship would have been damaged.
Huffy, there's a great descriptive word. It means easily offended, irritated, or annoyed, often over something relatively minor. Nobody wants to deal with a huffy person who makes every interaction emotionally charged. It's a form of emotional blackmail, basically. Do this for me or I'll make you feel deeply guilty.
Emotional blackmail is the dark, manipulative side of favors. And unfortunately, some people use guilt as a deliberate weapon. How do you spot that behavior and protect yourself from it?
Watch carefully for phrases like, "After all I've done for you over the years," or "If you really cared about me, you would," or "I'm so disappointed, I thought I could count on you." Those are bright red flags waving. A genuine, healthy request doesn't come with strings attached and doesn't weaponize your shared history against you.
Strings attached, meaning hidden conditions or unspoken expectations lurking beneath the surface. A favor with strings isn't really a favor at all. It's a transaction disguised as generosity, and those situations always feel slimy and manipulative when the hidden expectations eventually surface.
So slimy and uncomfortable. I once had someone enthusiastically offer to help me with a major work project, and I later found out they expected me to promote their side business constantly on my social media in return. That expectation was never discussed up front, and when it came out, it made me feel used and manipulated.
That leaves such a bad taste in your mouth. That's exactly why clarity and transparency are so critically important on both sides of any favor. If there's any expectation of reciprocity or payback, it should be stated openly and honestly from the beginning. Otherwise, it's a hidden trap.
Exactly. Healthy favors are given freely, with genuine joy, not with a secret mental ledger being updated in the back of the giver's mind. When someone keeps score meticulously, the friendship starts to feel less like a relationship and more like a cold accounting exercise.
A ledger, a detailed record of debts and credits. That's a miserable, transactional way to approach human relationships. So how do we cultivate a culture of generosity without keeping score or turning friendships into balance sheets?
I think it starts with giving freely, without any expectation of direct or immediate return. Just help people because you can, and because it's the right thing to do. The positive energy you put out into the world tends to come back around eventually, but often not from the same person you helped. It's a flow, not a direct exchange or a barter system.
That's a lovely way to visualize it, like a flowing river rather than a mechanical vending machine. You contribute to the overall current of goodwill in your community, and you trust that it'll circle back eventually, maybe from a completely unexpected direction at an unexpected time.
Exactly that. I've received incredible life-changing kindness from total strangers when I was traveling abroad and found myself in a serious jam. They didn't know me from Adam, had no reason to help, but they stepped up anyway. Those moments genuinely restore your faith in humanity and remind you of our shared connection.
They didn't know me from Adam, meaning they had absolutely no idea who I was. I was a complete stranger. That's a wonderful idiom. And those moments are so profoundly powerful, precisely because there's zero expectation of payback or recognition. It's pure, unadulterated generosity with no agenda whatsoever.
Pure generosity is one of the most beautiful things a person can experience, either as the giver or the receiver. It's a little bright spark of genuine human connection in a world that can often feel disconnected, cold, and transactional.
Beautifully said, Jake. So maybe the ultimate secret to getting comfortable with asking for favors isn't actually about technique or phrasing at all. It's about being the kind of person who would eagerly say yes to others. Being a generous, helpful person yourself makes asking feel less hypocritical and more natural.
Exactly right. You're not a taker or a leech. You're an active participant in a reciprocal community. We all genuinely need each other. Admitting that isn't weakness, it's profound wisdom. The myth of the completely independent lone wolf who needs nobody is just that, a myth that makes people isolated.
A myth that makes people very lonely and disconnected. I'd much rather be interdependent and part of a supportive network. So before we start to wrap up, let's give our listeners a practical toolkit. What's your absolute #1 go-to phrase for asking for a favor politely in English?
I'd say, "Would you mind?" is a real powerhouse phrase. Would you mind picking me up from the station? Would you mind taking a quick look at this document? It's so naturally polite, so deferential. It implies you're asking them to go slightly out of their way, and you deeply appreciate their consideration.
Would you mind is absolutely classic and essential. And you respond with not at all if you're willing to help, which can be confusing for English learners since it sounds like a negative response. Another excellent one is I could really use your help with. It shows vulnerability without being demanding or presumptuous.
Love that one. And then my final toolkit tip. Always pair your request with whenever you have a free moment, or if you get a chance, or at your convenience. It completely removes the time pressure and allows them to fit the favor naturally into their own life and schedule.
Perfect practical advice. So to bring it all home and synthesize everything we've discussed, ask with genuine humility, accept the answer with grace regardless of what it is, and thank with heartfelt sincerity. Do those 3 things consistently, and you'll not only get more help when you need it, you'll build stronger, deeper, more trusting relationships across the board.
And relationships are what it's all about, really, when you strip everything else away. At the end of the day, a life rich in favors freely exchanged is a life rich in genuine human connection. It's living proof that we're not alone in this thing, that we have people who care.
Not alone at all. And that's a comforting thought. All right, I think we've unpacked this topic pretty thoroughly from all angles. Jake, any final words of wisdom or encouragement for our listeners before we officially sign off?
Just this simple thought. The next time you need a favor and feel that familiar hesitation creeping in, take a deep breath and remember that asking is fundamentally an act of trust. You're telling someone, I believe in your kindness and your capacity for generosity, And more often than not, people will rise beautifully to meet that belief.
I believe in your kindness. What a beautiful and hopeful note to end on. That's going to stick with me. Thank you, Jake, for this thoughtful, honest conversation. And thank you to everyone listening for spending your valuable time with us today. Now go out there and be kind to each other. And please, don't be afraid to ask for help when you genuinely need it. It's not weakness, it's connection.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for having me, Emma. This was a genuine pleasure. And to our listeners, take good care of yourselves and take good care of each other. That's what it's all about. See you next time.
Bye, everyone. Be well.
Bye. Take care out there.